Humans didn't attack me. They told me a joke and it broke half my ribs. Let me tell you something about humans that nobody puts in the official diplomatic briefings. They will absolutely 100% kill you with kindness. Literally. I am not being metaphorical here. I am currently lying in a medical regeneration pod with 4 fractured ribs, 2 cracked thorax plates, and a bruised breathing spiracle, all because a human female told me a joke. Yes, a joke. My name is Colvin, and I served. I am on medical leave now as a cultural liaison officer for the Vrelthi Diplomatic Corps. We are the people who make first contact work. We smooth over the awkward bits. We explain why your species finds the color purple offensive, or why you should not, under any circumstances, compliment a Dravik's egg sac. We are very good at our jobs. We have a 98.7% success rate. And then, we met the humans. The medical pod hums around me, pumping regenerative fluids through my system, and I stare up at the curved transparent ceiling, watching the medical bay's soft blue lights pulse in rhythm with my healing cycle. Healer Renikath, bless his 6 hearts, has stopped asking me what happened. The first dozen times I told him, he simply did not believe me. The look on his face, all 4 of his eye stalks swiveling in different directions, was almost worth the pain. Almost. But let me back up. Let me tell you how a trained diplomatic professional, someone who has successfully negotiated trade agreements with the Zorlethi, who are literally made of sentient acid, ended up in this utterly ridiculous situation. It started 3 cycles ago. That is when I received my assignment. The message came through on official channels marked with the highest priority designation. The Galactic Council was establishing a joint diplomatic mission with the newly contacted humans, and they needed cultural liaisons from a dozen species. I was honored, naturally. The humans had been the talk of the galactic community for the better part of a standard year. Everyone knew about them. The species from a Class 12 death world, which if you are not familiar with the classification system, means a planet so absurdly hostile that the fact anything evolved to sentience there is basically a statistical impossibility. Gravity 1.3 times standard. Atmospheric oxygen levels that would be considered toxic to most species, weather patterns that included frozen water falling from the sky, wind speeds that could strip flesh from bone, and my personal favorite, something they called hurricanes, which were basically apopic spiral storms that happened so regularly they named them. The briefings we received before departure were, shall we say, thorough, exhaustive, borderline paranoid. We learned about human bone density, roughly 3 times that of a standard bipedal species, their muscle fiber composition, designed for something called pursuit predation, which meant they could literally chase prey until it died of exhaustion. Their immune systems, which apparently treated most galactic pathogens as a light snack, their pain tolerance, which was, and I am quoting the xenobiology report here, inappropriately high for a sentient species. Everything in those briefings made them sound like walking weapons. Biological nightmares wrapped in soft skin and friendly smiles. We were warned, repeatedly, extensively, with visual aids, not to startle them, not to trigger their fight or flight responses, not to make sudden movements near their young. What we were not warned about, what nobody thought to mention, what apparently did not make it into any of the official documentation, was that humans had weaponized something far more dangerous than their deathworld biology. They had weaponized joy. I shift slightly in the pod, and immediately regret it as my ribs send sharp protest through my nervous system. The regenerative fluids bubble gently, working to knit bone and cartilage back together. It will take another 2 cycles before I am cleared for duty. 2 cycles of lying here, staring at the ceiling, replaying the moment that my entire understanding of danger was fundamentally shattered. Healer Renikath appears at the edge of my vision, 2 of his eye stalks peering down at me with what I have learned to recognize as professional concern, mixed with personal amusement. He does not say anything. He does not need to. The medical report speaks for itself, cause of injury, and I can see it glowing on the datapad he carries, reads, exposure to human humor, uncontrolled laughter response, catastrophic structural failure. That report, by the way, is now part of my permanent medical record. It will follow me for the rest of my career. When I apply for promotions, when I transfer to new postings, when I eventually retire and write my memoirs, this will be there. Colvin, the Vrelthi who got hospitalized by a joke. I closed my primary eyelids and let out a long, carefully controlled breath through my secondary spiracles, the ones that did not crack. And despite the pain, despite the embarrassment, despite knowing that this story will be told in diplomatic circles for generations, I find myself thinking one very specific, very human thought. It was absolutely worth it. The human diplomatic vessel was called the Harmony Bridge, which I later learned was the kind of optimistic naming convention humans loved. They named things aspirationally, as if calling a ship Harmony would somehow prevent the 17 different species aboard from attempting to poison each other over seating arrangements. I arrived via shuttle, along with 2 other Vrelthi staff members and a very nervous Quellan administrator, who kept muttering prayers to his 17 gods. The docking procedure was smooth, professional, exactly what you would expect from a species that had achieved faster-than-light travel. The airlock cycled open with a soft hiss, and I stepped into the main corridor, my diplomatic robes flowing behind me, ready to make an excellent first impression. That lasted approximately 7 seconds. "Oh hey! You must be Colvin." The voice came from my left, bright and enthusiastic, and I turned to see my first human in person. Not in a holovid, not in a briefing simulation, actually standing there roughly 2 meters away, holding what appeared to be a datapad in one hand, and a bag of something orange and deeply suspicious in the other. Her name, I would learn, was Rebecca Torres. She was, according to her official designation, a xenocultural specialist with a focus on non-verbal communication. She had dark hair pulled back into something called a ponytail, which seemed inefficient. She wore the standard human diplomatic uniform, dark blue with the Earth emblem on the shoulder, but she had rolled up her sleeves, which I was reasonably certain was not regulation, and she was smiling. Humans smile a lot. It is one of the first things you notice. They bare their teeth, which in roughly 73% of known species is a threat display. But for humans, it means, "Hello, I am friendly, please do not be alarmed." I was alarmed anyway. "Yes," I managed, remembering my diplomatic training. "I am Colvin, Cultural Liaison, 3rd rank, Vrelthi Diplomatic Corps. It is an honor to serve alongside humanity in this historic endeavor." "Cool, cool," she said, nodding. Then she held out the bag of orange things. "Want a chip? They are habanero lime. Fair warning though, they are pretty spicy." I stared at the bag. The orange objects inside appeared to be some kind of processed food substance, coated in red powder that my translator chip unhelpfully informed me contained capsaicin, which was a compound that triggered pain receptors in most species. Humans ate it for fun. I appreciate the offer, but Vrelthi physiology does not process capsaicin effectively," I said carefully. "Oh right, yeah, that makes sense." She popped one of the chips into her mouth, crunching it loudly. "These things would probably wreck your system. They kind of wreck mine too, honestly. But like in a good way. There was no good way for food to wreck your digestive system." This was a fundamental truth, and yet here was this human casually consuming what amounted to chemical irritants, describing the experience as enjoyable. Rebecca gestured down the corridor with her datapad. "Come on. I will show you to your quarters." We set up the environmental controls to match Vrelthi standard. Temperature, humidity, atmospheric composition, the whole deal. Oh, and we put in one of those resting platforms you guys prefer. Is it true you sleep standing up? Because that is wild. I tried it once and just fell over. She talked as we walked, a continuous stream of words punctuated by the occasional crunch of her lethal snack food. I found myself studying her movements, the way she gestured with her hands, the casual confidence in her stride. The briefings had mentioned that humans were persistence predators, that they had evolved to walk ridiculous distances without tiring. Watching her move, I could believe it. There was an efficiency to her gait, a sense that she could simply keep going indefinitely, without effort. "So, your file says you speak 9 languages, Rebecca continued, glancing at her datapad. "That is seriously impressive. I can barely handle 3, and one of them is barely conversational. How does that even work? Do you have like extra brain sections or something?" "We have a more distributed neural structure than humans," I explained, falling into the comfortable rhythm of explaining Vrelthi biology. "Our memory formation is processed across multiple cortical nodes, which allows for more efficient language acquisition and retention." "That is so cool," she said, and she sounded like she genuinely meant it. Meanwhile, I spent 6 years learning Mandarin and still sound like a toddler when I try to order food. We passed other crew members in the corridor. A Chithrak engineer, who gave us a wide berth, antennae twitching nervously. 2 Meln delegates, floating in their mobility spheres filled with their native ocean water, who burbled something that my translator rendered as a polite greeting. And more humans, always more humans, all of them nodding or waving or saying hey as they passed. They were everywhere, and they all seemed so relaxed. That should have been my first warning. When a species from a death world acts that comfortable in a space station full of aliens, it means one of 2 things. Either they are oblivious to danger, which seemed unlikely given humanity's rapid technological advancement, or they are so thoroughly confident in their ability to handle threats that they simply do not register concern anymore. I was beginning to suspect it was the latter. Rebecca stopped at a door marked with Relfi glyphs, which was a nice touch. She pressed her palm to the access panel, and it slid open. Here you go. Home sweet home for the next 3 months. If you need anything, just ping me. I am in Section 7, Room 42. Oh, and we have a diplomatic dinner tonight. 1800 hours, main conference hall. Casual dress, nothing fancy. It will be fun. Fun. She said it like it was a good thing. I should have known better. I really should have known better. The main conference hall had been decorated for what humans called a mixer, which apparently meant throw everyone together and see what happens. There were approximately 40 beings from 12 different species, all standing or floating or, in the case of the Quellan delegation, hovering nervously near the exits. I arrived precisely on time, wearing my formal diplomatic sash, which was significantly more formal than what anyone else was wearing. The humans had taken casual dress very literally. Rebecca stood near a table laden with food, wearing something she called a sweater, which seemed to serve no functional purpose except to be, quote, cozy. Kolovin, you made it. She waved me over with genuine enthusiasm. Come on. You have to try the food. We went full international potluck style. That is Indian curry. That is Ethiopian injera. Those are Mexican tamales. And that right there is Swedish meatballs. Oh, and stay away from the kimchi unless your species can handle fermentation. Trust me on that one. I approached the table with the caution normally reserved for active munitions. Every dish smelled aggressive. Not bad necessarily, but aggressive. Like the ingredients had engaged in combat before being assembled on the plate. This is all human food? I asked, staring at what appeared to be a bowl of red liquid with floating vegetables that were definitely still steaming. Yep, well, Earth food. We have got like hundreds of different cuisines depending on region and culture. It is kind of our thing. She picked up a small plate and started loading it with alarming combinations. We are really into food, like really into it. Some of our wars have been fought over spices. Actual wars. People died for cinnamon. A Chethrak named Vixthel clicked his mandibles nervously from across the table. Your species engaged in armed conflict over plant matter used for flavoring. Oh yeah, Rebecca said cheerfully, handing me a plate with small samples of things I could not identify. The spice trade was huge. Humans sailed across oceans, colonized continents, committed some deeply regrettable atrocities, all because we wanted our food to taste interesting. We have calmed down about it now, obviously, but yeah, we were pretty intense about our seasonings. I stared at the plate she had given me. Nothing on it was trying to escape, which I took as a positive sign. But several items were colors that did not occur in nature, at least not in nature that wanted you to survive. More beings filtered into the hall. The Meln delegates floated their spheres to a specially designed seating area. A group of Dravik engineers clustered together, eyeing the humans with suspicion. And everywhere, humans moved through the crowd, introducing themselves, shaking hands or adjusting their greetings based on species, laughing at things that probably were not funny but somehow became funny because they were laughing. We eventually seated ourselves at long tables arranged in a rough circle. I found myself between Rebecca and a human male named Marcus Chen, who apparently specialized in exobiology and would not stop asking me questions about Relfi reproduction, which was getting progressively more uncomfortable. Rebecca mercifully redirected the conversation. So, Colvin, what do you think of the ship so far? Is everything working okay with your quarters? The accommodations are excellent, I said honestly. Very thorough attention to environmental needs. Good. Good. We tried to do our homework. First time hosting this many species in one place, so we were a little worried we would mess something up. She took a drink of something fizzy that actually hissed when she opened it. Carbonation. Humans deliberately added gas to their beverages to make them, and I am quoting here, more refreshing. A melon delegate, her voice bubbling through her sphere's translator, asked the question that had been on everyone's mind. Is it true that Earth has weather patterns that regularly destroy infrastructure? Oh yeah, Marcus jumped in, nodding. Hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, tsunamis, we have got the full disaster package. My hometown got hit by a tornado when I was 12, ripped the roof right off our school. The table went silent, Vikstall's antennae drooped. And then your educational facility was rebuilt? Sure. Took about 6 months. We just had classes in temporary buildings, until then. Marcus shrugged, like this was completely normal. It is what you do, you know. Stuff gets wrecked, you rebuild it, you move on. Rebecca leaned forward, warming to the topic. Earth is kind of a mess, honestly. We have volcanoes that just randomly explode. We have storms that drop frozen water hard enough to dent vehicles. We have temperature swings that can go from like 50 degrees Celsius in summer to -40 in winter, depending on where you live. Oh, and sometimes the ground just opens up and swallows things. Sinkholes. Those are fun. Fun? I could not help myself. The word escaped before I could stop it. You described catastrophic geological instability as fun. Well, not fun like enjoyable, she clarified, grinning. More like, look at that, nature is trying to kill us again, let us go film it and put it on the internet. You document the attempts on your lives. Aquilon administrator looked like he might faint, which for his species involved a color shift to pale green. Sure, some of the most popular videos on Earth are storms, disasters, people doing dangerous stuff. We love it. There is this whole genre called extreme sports, where humans just like throw themselves off cliffs with parachutes, or surf massive waves or climb mountains without safety equipment, purely for the adrenaline rush. The table had gone from silent to completely stunned. I could see the Dravik delegation quietly recalculating their threat assessment of humanity. This was not the controlled diplomatic information we had received in briefings. This was humans casually describing their nightmare planet like it was a mildly inconvenient roommate. Marcus pulled out his personal data pad. Oh, here, let me show you. This is footage from the Australia fires a few years back. That entire region was just on fire. For months. And people stayed. Vix Thistle clicked in disbelief. Where else were they going to go? It is home. Marcus said it simply. Like this explained everything. It did not explain anything. It made everything more confusing. Rebecca finished her fizzing drink and smiled at the group, completely unaware that she had just made every non-human at the table deeply uncomfortable. So, anyone want to hear about the time my great-grandmother survived a tsunami by climbing a tree? It is a great story. Really funny actually, she tells it at every family reunion. Funny, a survival story. About a massive wall of water. Was funny. I was beginning to realize that humans had a very different relationship with danger than the rest of us. And I had no idea how different it was about to get. The dinner continued for another hour, and with each passing minute, the humans revealed new and terrifying information about their planet, their history, and their deeply unsettling comfort with chaos. We learned that humans kept predators as pets. We learned that they consumed fungi for enjoyment. We learned that they had invented something called roller coasters, which were essentially mechanical devices designed to simulate the experience of falling to your death, and that paid money to ride them. Multiple times, for fun. By the time the meal wound down, I felt like I had survived a psychological endurance test. My threat assessment subroutines were firing constantly, trying to process the sheer absurdity of everything I had heard. The Melon delegates had retreated into their spheres and stopped responding to external stimuli. Vixthol was compulsively grooming his antennae. The Quillen administrator had excused himself 30 minutes ago and had not returned. But the humans, they were relaxed. Happy. Rebecca was laughing at something Marcus said, her whole face animated, gesturing with her hands in that exuberant way humans did when they were enjoying themselves. Then she turned to address the table, her expression bright. Hey, so this has been amazing. getting to know everyone. I feel like we have shared a lot about human culture tonight. Maybe a little too much, she laughed, glancing at the shell-shocked aliens around her. But there is one thing we have not really covered. Human humor. Oh. No. See, humans have this thing called comedy. It is a whole art form, actually. We tell stories, or make observations, specifically designed to trigger laughter. It is how we process stress, trauma, existential dread, the usual stuff. And I thought, since we are all here, maybe I could share one. A joke. Nothing too complicated, just a fun little story. Would that be okay? The table exchanged glances. None of us knew what to expect, but after everything we had heard tonight, how bad could it possibly be? I will give you a moment to appreciate the dramatic irony of that thought. Sure, I said, because I was the cultural liaison and it was literally my job to engage with human customs, even when those customs sounded vaguely threatening. We would be honored to experience human humor. Rebecca's smile widened. Okay. Awesome. So this is one of my favorites. It is about a man, a penguin, and a very confused police officer. She settled into her chair and I noticed her posture change slightly. Her voice took on a different quality, more rhythmic, more deliberate. This was a performance. Humans did not just tell jokes, they performed them. So, a guy is driving through town, middle of the day, windows down, nice weather, and he has got a penguin sitting in his passenger seat. Just a penguin, full grown, chilling there like it is totally normal. Already, my brain was struggling. Why did the human have a flightless aquatic bird in his vehicle? How did he acquire it? What were the legal implications? But Rebecca continued, not pausing for these obviously critical questions. A police officer sees this, right? And obviously he is a little concerned, because that is not something you see every day, even on a weird day. So he pulls the guy over, walks up to the window and says, "Sir, why do you have a penguin in your car?" And the guy looks at the penguin, looks back at the officer and just goes, "I do not know, man, he just waddled up to my car this morning." Marcus was already grinning. He had heard this before, he knew what was coming. So the officer thinks about this, and he says, "Okay, well, you cannot just drive around with a penguin, you need to take him to the zoo." And the guy nods, says, "Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I will take him to the zoo." The officer lets him go with a warning, feels pretty good about himself, animal safely being transported to proper facility, problem solved. Rebecca paused, taking a sip of water, letting the moment breathe. This was intentional. She was building something. Next day, same officer is on patrol, and guess what he sees? Same guy, same car, same penguin in the passenger seat. Except now, the penguin is wearing sunglasses. Vixthal made a confused clicking sound. Why would the penguin require vision protection? "Hold on, we are getting there," Rebecca said, grinning. So the officer pulls him over again, walks up, and he is a little annoyed now. He says, "Sir, I thought I told you to take that penguin to the zoo." And the guy looks at him, completely sincere, and says, "I did. We had a great time. Today I am taking him to the beach." There was a beat of silence. And then it hit me. The structure of it, the misdirection, the subversion of expectation. The officer assumed take him to the zoo meant deliver him to the zoo for permanent residence, but the human interpreted it as take him to the zoo for a visit, and then continued taking the penguin on outings as if it were a companion, and the penguin wearing sunglasses implied enthusiastic participation in these activities, which was absurd because penguins do not understand recreational tourism. But the image of it, the sheer ridiculous wholesome insanity of a man treating a penguin like a friend and showing it a good time, while the officer became increasingly confused about how to handle this situation that was technically not illegal but was definitely not normal. And I started laughing. Except Relthy do not laugh. We do not have the biological infrastructure for it. Laughter requires a specific configuration of respiratory systems, diaphragm muscles and neural pathways that my species simply did not evolve. We express amusement through color shifts in our cranial ridges, a pleasant hum in our vocal cords, sometimes a slight swaying motion. My body did not get that message. My thorax started contracting, rapidly, involuntarily. My breathing spiracles opened and closed in spasms, trying to process the sudden surge of oxygen my system was demanding. My ribs, designed for a slow, steady respiratory rhythm, began flexing in ways they were absolutely not designed to flex. And I could not stop. The joke had triggered something in my neural chemistry, some kind of cascade reaction that my biology had no framework to handle. I was experiencing the emotional and psychological sensation of laughter, but my body was trying to process it through systems that were never meant to do this. It hurt. Oh, ancestors. It hurt, but I could not stop. I heard Rebecca's voice, suddenly alarmed. Colvin. Hey, are you okay? Colvin. My vision started blurring. The contractions were getting stronger. Somewhere in the back of my pain-addled mind, I registered a sharp, cracking sensation in my lower thorax. That was not good. That was very much not good. Marcus was on his feet, yelling for a medical team. Vixthal was frozen. Antennae, standing straight up in alarm. The Melon delegates were making distressed, bubbling noises. And Rebecca, oh poor Rebecca, looked absolutely horrified. I am so sorry, I did not know. Oh God, someone get a medic, I broke him. I broke the alien with a penguin joke. The last thing I remember before the medical team arrived was thinking, with perfect clarity, through the pain and the chaos and the sheer absurdity of the situation, that the penguin was wearing sunglasses. Tiny little sunglasses. On its way to the beach. And then everything went dark, and I was still laughing, sort of, in the terrible way that my body was trying to laugh, as I lost consciousness in the most ridiculous medical emergency in the history of interstellar relations. Cause of injury. Penguin joke. Prognosis. Embarrassment for the rest of my natural life. Worth it. Absolutely. Which brings us back to now. Me in this medical pod, staring at the ceiling, contemplating the profound cosmic joke that is my existence. The regenerative fluids have done their work. My ribs are mostly healed, though healer Renenkath insists I stay for observation for another half cycle. Something about ensuring my respiratory system has fully stabilized and will not spontaneously collapse if I encounter anything amusing. He is being sarcastic. I think I am learning to recognize sarcasm now. It is a human thing. It is spreading. The door to the medical bay slides open with a soft hiss, and I do not need to turn my head to know who it is. I can hear the specific pattern of her footsteps, the slight squeak of her shoes on the polished floor. Hey, Rebecca says quietly, approaching the pod. She looks tired. Her hair is not in its usual ponytail, just hanging loose around her shoulders. She is carrying a datapad clutched against her chest like a shield. How are you feeling? Like I was attacked by a flightless bird wearing eyewear, I say, and her face does something complicated, caught between wanting to laugh and feeling guilty about it. I am so sorry, she says, and she means it. I can hear it in her voice. I had no idea that would happen. We ran biological compatibility checks for food, atmosphere, gravity, pathogens, but somehow nobody thought to check if jokes were dangerous. It did not even occur to us. How do you not test for jokes? Because, I say carefully, shifting slightly in the pod, no other species has weaponized joy quite like humans have. You are the only ones who can literally kill with kindness. Well, with comedy. Close enough. She pulls up a chair and sits down heavily. The report has already gone out to the Galactic Council. There is going to be a whole new section added to human interaction protocols. Warning labels. Humor safety briefings. I am pretty sure I am going to be famous for all the wrong reasons. You and me both, I point out. I am the alien who got hospitalized by a joke. That is going in history databases. There will be academy courses about this. Future diplomats will study my failure as a cautionary tale. It was not a failure, Rebecca says firmly. You were doing your job. You engaged with human culture. How were you supposed to know your species does not have the biological infrastructure for laughter? That is not in any of our databases either. We sit in silence for a moment, just the hum of the medical equipment and the distant sounds of the ship's systems. Can I ask you something? I say finally. Sure. Why do humans do it? The jokes, the laughter, the finding humor in everything, even terrible things. We heard stories at that dinner about disasters, about your planet trying to kill you, and you laughed about it. Why? Rebecca is quiet for a long moment, thinking. When she speaks, her voice is softer. Because, if we did not laugh, we would cry. Earth is hard. Life is hard. We evolved on a planet that threw everything at us, over and over. and the ones who survived were the ones who could look at the chaos and find something funny in it. Humor is not just entertainment for us. It is a survival mechanism. It is how we process trauma, how we bond, how we remind ourselves that even when everything is terrible, we are still here, still standing, still capable of joy. I absorbed this, turning it over in my mind. So you turned suffering into a weapon against suffering. Yeah, she says, smiling slightly. Yeah, I guess we did. That is, and I mean this with the utmost respect, completely insane. We get that a lot. Another pause, and then I asked the question I have been thinking about since I woke up in this pod. When I am healed, when I am cleared for duty, will you tell me another joke? Her eyebrows shoot up. Seriously, after what just happened? Especially after what just happened, I say. I need to understand this. I need to learn how to process humor without, structural failure. If I am going to work with humans, really work with you, I need to build up a tolerance. Like your capsaicin. Start small, work my way up. Rebecca stares at me for a long moment and then she laughs. A real genuine laugh, and I feel my cranial ridges shift to a pleased blue color, which is the Vrelthi equivalent of smiling. Okay, she says. Okay, yeah. When you are healed, I will tell you another joke. But we are starting really small. Like knock-knock joke level, and healer Renkath is going to be standing by with emergency equipment. Deal. She stands up, tucking the datapad under her arm and heads for the door, but she pauses at the threshold looking back at me. For what it is worth, Colvin, you are a pretty great diplomat. Most people would file a formal complaint, maybe start an interstellar incident. You are asking for more jokes. Well, I say, settling back into the pod's embrace, I figure if humans can survive on a death world by laughing at it, the least I can do is try to laugh with them. Even if it kills me. Let us try to avoid that this time, she says, grinning. No promises. She leaves, and I am alone again with my thoughts, my healing ribs, and the absolute certainty that my life has become infinitely more interesting and infinitely more dangerous since humans entered the galactic community. And honestly, I would not have it any other way. Somewhere in the station, I am certain, there is already a file being compiled, updated xenobiological protocols, new safety standards, warning labels that will be attached to human cultural exchanges for the next 1,000 years. Contents may include humor, laughter, risk assessment required, proceed with caution and medical supervision. My legacy, my contribution to galactic civilization. I got defeated by a penguin in sunglasses. And you know what? I would do it again in a heartbeat. Because Rebecca was right. If you cannot laugh at the absurdity of existence, at the cosmic joke of an uptight Vrelthi diplomat being hospitalized by a wholesome story about a man and his penguin friend going on adventures, then what is the point? Humans did not just survive their death world, they thrived on it. They turned it into art. And now, lying here in this medical pod, ribs aching, dignity in tatters, reputation thoroughly destroyed, I finally understand what makes them so dangerous. It is not their strength, it is not their endurance, it is not even their ridiculous immune systems or their ability to eat poison for entertainment. It is their joy. Unbreakable, unstoppable, completely unreasonable joy in the face of a universe that has given them every reason to give up. That is the thing about humans that nobody puts in the briefings. They will make you laugh until your ribs break. And somehow, impossibly, you will thank them for it.